Welcome back to Sonic Adventure. In the last part we finished off the Sonic campaign and now we're going to be starting the Tails playthrough. In terms of the levels and lots of the story beats, it's going to be a lot of the same because Tails was with us with Sonic rather, for a lot of the adventure. If Sonic had Tails accompanying him in a level, that basically means Tails is also going to go through that level. In terms of the story, there are differences, but in the scenes that they share, it's not exactly the same. Like, the characters will have different lines, there might be slightly different inflections on the words that they say if it's the same line or something like that. So, it changes slightly depending on the point of view of the character. You do still probably want to watch the cutscenes because, you know, they're not going to be the exact same thing as before. As you see here, we don't get to go through Emerald Coast. Sonic basically ruins the moment because at the beginning of this cutscene, it basically plays the Emerald Coast music, and as soon as Sonic shows up, it starts playing It Doesn't Matter, which was a very jarring thing to happen just there. In terms of Tails as a character, he debuted in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where he was basically Sonic's sidekick. In terms of gameplay, he was a clone of Sonic. He had all the same moves. He could do a spin dash, he could jump into enemies, he could roll if he was running fast enough and you press down on the D-pad. You can also do that in this game if you're running fast enough and you press the action button, but it's not all that useful. And he could fly, although that wasn't an ability that the player could use in Sonic 2. In Sonic 3 you could, but in Sonic 2, if you outran Tails, he would jump back into the scene by flying using his twin tails. That's also probably a very important fact, he has two tails, which is why he's called Tails. But his real name is actually Miles Prower, being a pun on the term miles per hour. Makes sense considering that Sonic is all about speed, and Tails can run pretty fast on his own as well. You can also fly in this game if you press the jump button after already jumping. You can use that ability to get into this area that no one else can get into and find Tails' first upgrade, the Jet Anklet. This is an optional upgrade, unlike a lot of Sonics, well, 2 of 3 of Sonics, so most of Sonics technically, but whatever. Tails' upgrades are optional, and this one is the Jet Anklet. It allows you to fly at a faster speed. Pretty useful. The way Tails' flying works is that you press the jump button, and then you press it again. If you just tap it, he sort of glides. He doesn't really make any upward distance. If you hold the button, he starts going higher. But after a while, he will get tired and start falling. In order to get the most bang for your buck, by which I mean get the most distance with Tails' flying, you probably want to tap the jump button every couple of seconds so that way you could make more distance rather than just holding the button down and having him get tired. If you press the action button while on the ground and not running at high speed, which I'm showing there, if you run at high speed and then tap the action button, you roll, Tails will instead spin, doing a short range attack around him, hitting any enemies. It's not that useful, honestly, not until a lot later in the game, but, you know, it's there if you want to use it. Something that I didn't mention that honestly isn't that useful is if you press the jump button and then the action button afterwards, the character will stop any upwards momentum they have and sort of go into this different falling animation. So with Sonic and Tails, you press jump and then you press action, they'll sort of get out of their ball form and instead just start falling. I'm not sure if they can do any damage while falling, because in some games you can, in some games you can't. Some you have to be in a spin in order to do any damage to enemies, and some you could just be falling really fast and you'll still be able to plow through them. I'm not sure in this game. There's not really a need for that, so I don't really test it out ever. But since Tails was there, we have to fight the Egg Hornet. Honestly, it's harder as Tails because we don't have a homing attack trick to do in order to make the boss mincemeat in about, I don't know, 20 seconds. This time we actually have to go through the whole thing, and it progressively gets harder as you keep going. For example, he launches another salvo of missiles after the first one. That's pretty much the only difference. He shoots more missiles after every hit, and he only takes 3 hits. The amount of missiles being relative to how many hits he has left. Since he only has 1, he's going to shoot 3 salvos instead of the 2 that he did previously and the 1 that he did at the beginning. I did get hit, but it doesn't really matter because of the way rings in Sonic work. I'm not sure if I talked about that, but your health is related to your rings. If you get hit without any rings, you lose a life. Get hit with rings, and instead you'll take some damage, you'll get knocked back a bit, and the rings will spread out around you. You can collect those rings back up in order to get some more quote-unquote health, be able to take another hit essentially. But there is a sort of special mechanic that's related to the rings. Say you have over 32. That's usually the number in the classic Sonic games, I think, or at least in the Rush games. If you have over 32 rings and you get hit, only 32 are going to appear after you get hit. That's all you'll be able to collect back up. You won't be able to get all 200 or so that you had previously. Kind of lame, but I think it's a pretty fitting punishment for if you were to get hit. Tails in this version, since he's taking the helm of the adventure here, he's getting quite shocked at Chaos's transformation, or at Chaos in general, because he hasn't seen Chaos yet, only Sonic has. Kinda makes sense, Tails is a child after all. That's something I didn't mention. The characters in the Sonic universe all have ages, and they really don't mean anything. Characters don't really age, except for Sonic, who had a birthday during Sonic Generations. But I think from the 3D games onward until Sonic Generations, the canon was that Sonic is 15 years old. And I think that's just how old he will be forever, unless he's 16 now thanks to the Generations birthday party. Tails is supposed to be, I think, 8 years old, which, I don't know, makes sense, I suppose. He's a child, and he's a pretty smart child. Of course, you've seen that he's a mechanic, he can build his own planes and such. As with Sonic, we have to take the Wind Stone after beating the Egg Hornet from Tails' workshop to this little area right here, so that we may enter Windy Valley. That is Tails' first stage, as opposed to being Sonic's second stage. And in this stage, we only really play the quote-unquote Act 3 of the stage. Act 1 being the place that Sonic started out in, Act 2 being the tornado, and Act 3 being this area in the sky. Now Tails, because he can fly, can cheese his way through a lot of the levels. The way Tails' mechanic for levels is that he's basically racing other characters. As you can see here, he's racing Sonic. And the goal is to get to the end of the level before the other character does. If you win, you complete the level. If you lose, you have to start over. The level design will slightly change though, to reflect that Tails is playing. For example, there will be a lot of dash rings in mid-air that Tails can fly through. If you're jumping and you fly through them, or rather if you're flying and you fly through the dash rings, Tails will basically get a good boost of speed. And I think his flight meter will be recharged, so you can basically keep on flying after hitting one of those rings. The levels still emphasize a lot of speed, which is why I like them. And of course, since Tails can fly, he can pretty much break the levels. Not too badly, but I don't think I've ever lost one of the races. Right here in the Mystic Ruins, there's another special egg, and I'm going to be featuring the Chao Garden. If you push in the sort of stone slab that I pushed in, it'll make another one pop out near that waterfall. And out of that comes a silver egg. If you remember, we got a gold egg in Sonic's playthrough at Station Square. There's one special egg in each adventure field, I believe. The silver one being here, the gold one being at Station Square, and another special one being at the egg carrier. I'm just going to be showing off the Mystic Ruins Chao Garden in this playthrough. I'm not going to show off the egg carrier one. I will in a later playthrough, but I'm saving it. This is the entrance to the Mystic Ruins Chao Garden. You need to go through this minecart, or in this minecart, through the mine shaft, and you come up to this different Chao Garden. Again, I'm just gonna pick up the egg and shake it so that it could hatch. You could also throw it at a wall, which I don't do because I'm a nice guy. But out comes a silver Chao, and again, he has the same face as the last one did. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the way I'm opening the eggs. Maybe I have to let them come out on their own, but they keep having this dumb face that I don't like. So I'm not going to take care of this Chao. Nor am I ever going to take care of a lot of Chaos in Sonic Adventure. I prefer the Chao Garden of Sonic Adventure 2 anyways. But this is Sonic Adventure 1, so we'll just get off of that tangent right now.
Will be departing soon.
Again, we're following Sonic, or at least following Sonic's story, which is very clever, I suppose, when it comes to Tails' story, because Tails, his whole thing is that he follows Sonic, and what you're doing in the Tails playthrough is you're following the same story that Sonic does. So I just find it interesting in a sort of English class, jeez, words, symbolism kind of way, you know. Now back in Casinopolis, or oh my god, I said it, Casinopolis.
See you later, Tails.
We're basically trying to get to the end of the sewer area. We don't get any pinball or anything like that, mostly because that bit's pretty non-linear. Doesn't really emphasize the speed part of the Sonic series. And we just have to get to the end of the sewers, that's pretty much it. No ring count necessary for changing into tokens. We just gotta beat Sonic. And Sonic loves to basically exclaim whether or not Tails is in front of him or behind him whenever their places change. So if Sonic, you know, falls behind, he's always like, "Hey, Tails!" And whenever Tails falls behind, he's like, "Hey, hey, hey!" And it's quite annoying, but endearingly annoying. I don't know, I like it for some reason. And there are multiple lines, so it doesn't get too stale, especially if Tails is way ahead of Sonic. You're basically not going to hear the line that much.
What's that? The Chaos
The
Emerald!
races also have a lot of rubber band AI, basically meaning that when you're going through a stage as Tails, sometimes you might hear the sound of a character going over a dash panel, and if you look at the bottom of the screen where it shows the meter for how far you've gotten through a level, the character icon for Sonic will kind of zoom forward a bit, basically showing that the game is like, okay, you're going too fast. We need to help Sonic out a little, so there's a little challenge in this. So we're going to give him a boost, so that way he can, you know, there can be more tension in the situation. And there's Cream the Rabbit again. If you're in second place, that won't happen at all, I don't think. The game will let Sonic do his own thing so that Tails can catch up. But if you're in first, just be warned that Sonic might just zoom ahead at any point and you don't have any control over it because you're just playing to the best of your ability. If you want to play worse, you can do that, but I wouldn't recommend it since they are races. And as you saw there, I got one of the emblems. There are a bunch of emblems scattered around the overworld, and you can only collect them as certain characters. That one you can only get as like Tails or Knuckles, so I just got it then. I'm not going to be collecting all of them, nor do I think I'm going to be collecting any more of them. I just wanted to show that there are some in the overworld, and that, you know, specific characters need to be used in order to get specific emblems. There are also emblems for doing some of the minigames over and over, like trying to beat high scores in them. I'm also not going to be getting many of those. I'll get one by accident, but I'm just not going to be focusing on them is the thing. Next time in Sonic Adventure, we're going to be going into Ice Cap.